Okay, let's dive into this. We're looking at a brand new AI agent called DeepAgent, and trust me, it's a major, major leap forward from the assistants we're all used to. This isn't just a simple upgrade. We're talking about a whole new way for an AI to actually think.
You've probably felt this, right? You've got the latest and greatest AI model, but when you ask it to do something genuinely complex, like plan a whole trip with multiple stops and book everything, it just kind of falls apart. It gets stuck, or it misses a crucial step, or it just gives up. It's a super common frustration, and it points to a really big problem in how most AI agents are actually built.
So, to really get this, we're going to use an analogy. Think of most AIs today as a checklist intern. You hand them a list of steps, and they follow it. No questions asked, they have their set of tools, and if anything goes wrong, well, they're stuck. DeepAgent, though, is way more like a brilliant assistant. It doesn't just see the steps, it gets the mission. It can figure out it needs a new tool and go find it. And, this is the big one, when it hits a wall, it can actually stop, think, and change its entire plan.
So let's really dig into that first part, the checklist problem. Why do these intern-like agents have such a hard time with anything that isn't just a simple, one-and-done command?
Well, it pretty much all comes down to this old school cycle. Most agents, including really famous ones using the React framework, are stuck in this rigid loop. First, they think about one tiny step. Then they do one action. Then they look at what happened, and then they repeat. Reason, act, observe. It's very robotic, very one foot in front of the other. And you can probably guess this simple little loop leads to some huge problems. First off, there's no real autonomy. It's just following a script. Second, it can't just discover a new tool it might need halfway through. Nope, it's stuck with what it started with. It's also terrible at remembering what it did 10 steps ago. And maybe most important of all, it has zero big picture view. It's so obsessed with the very next step that it completely loses the plot on the overall goal. And this, right here, is where DeepAgent changes the game. It brings in a totally different way for an AI to work through a problem, something the researchers are calling a stream of thought. To put it as simply as possible, it completely shatters that old reason, act, observe loop. It's not about taking these tiny, separate steps anymore. The paper describes it with this quote, and it's absolutely crucial. Instead of separating thinking from doing, DeepAgent merges them into a single coherent agentic reasoning process. Thinking about the goal, finding the tools, and using the tools, it's all happening in one continuous, flowing process. So what does that actually look like in practice? It means the agent is constantly thinking, searching, and acting, all at the same time. It keeps a global view of the entire mission, from the very beginning to the very end, just like a human expert would, It's constantly adjusting its strategy as new information rolls in. So how in the world does it actually pull this off? Well, this new way of thinking is powered by two really clever innovations. Let's just call them DeepAgent's two superpowers that really make it that brilliant assistant. The first superpower is called autonomous memory folding. Now, this is so cool. When the agent gets a feeling like, I think I went down the wrong path here, it can literally decide to take a breath. It pauses, squishes down everything it's done so far into a tidy, organized memory, and then rethinks its entire strategy from this new, much clearer perspective. This is what stops it from getting stuck in those frustrating error loops. The second superpower is all about how it learns. It's a new technique called tool policy optimization, or ToolPO. Honestly, the best way to picture it is like a hyper-realistic flight simulator, but for using software tools. Instead of training on real-world APIs, which can be expensive and slow, the agent gets to practice in this simulated world, letting it safely learn how to use thousands of different tools super efficiently. And this flight simulator idea is just brilliant for a bunch of reasons. It's way safer and cheaper because it's not hammering real-world systems. It's way faster because there's no network lag. And it's smarter. The training can reward the agent for making the right little moves along the way, not just for getting the final answer right. This makes it so much more reliable when it's out in the wild. All right, so all this theory sounds amazing, but talk is cheap, right? Does any of this actually work? How does DeepAgent stack up when you put it head-to-head against the other big models? Let's get to the results. Okay, so on general tool use tasks, basically, how good is it at using a bunch of different tools to solve problems? The results are just clear. DeepAgent hits a score of 66.5%, which is miles ahead of really strong competitors like React running on GPT-4o. And then when you make the tasks even more complex and realistic, that performance gap just gets wider.
On tests that mimic things like online shopping or controlling a robot, DeepAgent is scoring over 53%, while the next best is all the way down at 37%. That's a huge difference.
But maybe the hardest test of all, the true boss battle for an AI agent, isn't just using tools you give it. It's finding the perfect tool for the job, all on its own, from a giant library of thousands of options.
And on this test, wow, the difference is just staggering. On these autonomous tool retrieval tasks, DeepAgent scores an average of 52.6%. The best of the competition? A measly 28.5%. It's nearly twice as good at finding and using the right tool at the right time. That is an absolute game changer. Okay, so let's zoom out. We've seen the tech, we've seen the numbers. What does this big shift towards truly autonomous agents actually mean for the future? Why does this all matter? Here's the number one takeaway. We are finally moving away from AI that just follows a simple checklist of instructions, and we're moving towards AI that can truly understand and accomplish a mission. You don't tell it how to do something, you just tell it what needs to get done, and it figures out the how, the tools, and the strategy all by itself.
The kind of stuff this unlocks is just enormous. We're talking about real AI partners for scientists in the lab, personal assistants that can actually handle the complicated parts of your life, autonomous agents that can help write and fix software. Really, just better problem solving for any complex thing you can think of.
Which leaves us with one last question for you to think about. If you had this technology right now, an AI that could really think, adapt, and get things done on its own, what's the very first complex mission you'd give it? Let that sink in. The answer might be closer to reality than you think.